First of all, I don't want to hear any comments about the lighting. It is what it is. I haven't had a sliver of sunlight in like 3 weeks, so that's as good as it's gonna get. I don't want to hear about it. Please be nice. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of my knitting podcast. I'm really glad that you decided to join me today, and as always, grab a drink, grab your knitting or any other crafting project you're working on, and let's get to it. In the last episode, I mentioned that I wanted to rework my weekend slipover into a sweater. I found that I didn't really wear it quite as much as I had hoped, and the reason why is because it didn't have any sleeves. So I wanted to add sleeves to it to make it more practical and wearable, and I did. I'm really happy about the result, especially considering that I had some hiccups along the way. My hiccup was the fact that I couldn't find the yarn I used for the body, which was Lettlopi Black Heather, and I had to substitute it with Black Sheep Heather. That is actually not black, it's just dark brown. The problem was that the only store here that sells Lettlopi only had one ball of this Black Heather colorway in stock, which would obviously not be enough to make 2 full-length sleeves. When I came up with an idea to add sleeves to the slipover, it felt like such a eureka moment. I could just order 3 balls of yarn and have a finished new sweater 3 days later. The fact that I had such a genius plan and no way to execute it, basically because I didn't have enough yarn, was really anticlimactic. I decided I would order yarn from the Lettlopi website. Like, I don't care. I know I will pay for the shipping, but for example, I can't find Lopi anywhere here, so pretty much the only way for me to get it is from the Lopi website. So I decided I would just add some yarns to my basket and see what the total for shipping would be. It was 35 euros. 5 and 30 euros just for the shipping. So I decided against it. I pretty much gave up. And then I remembered that there was a similar, really similar shade of Lettlopi to the one I needed. And I decided I would marl it. Alternate every row and see how it goes. As I said when I showed them to you last time, the colorways side by side, the difference is quite subtle. I think you can see the alternating and like the splicing I did, but if you're not looking for it, it just looks like something that was supposed to be this way. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just coping, but I really like that this has sleeves now. I wore it like a million times since I made it. I'm really pleased with how it came out. I don't miss the slipover at all, to be honest. I'll make myself another one, plus I have 2 that I wear all the time, so it's fine. I also did preserve the subtle like design element I did on the back. I sort of accentuated the shaping at the shoulders here with a contrasting yarn. I just did some slip stitches here with a crochet hook, and yeah, I love it. It was sort of a pain to knit it though, because I had to alternate every row. Like if I alternate these colorways every second row, you can see it, like it looks striped. So I had to really sort of wash them out every row, and I spliced every row. And the thing about splicing, if you ever see a person, like a video that explains how to splice, or you know, like an Instagram reel of somebody splicing and they use water, they're lying to you. Water for splicing is the same as the blue liquid in like tampon commercials. So the legend is that I used water to splice it every row. Oh my god. You know what I just realized? I didn't have to splice. I didn't have to splice, oh my god. I could have just alternated it and leave. Oh my god. I could have just left it float, and I would not have to do all the... I'll be right back. I have to. I'll be right back. I might cut out this part just because it's too embarrassing to admit, but maybe not. Maybe there's a good lesson that even the best knitters out there make mistakes sometimes and make wrong decisions. But yeah. Anyway, I'm really pleased with this sweater. I'm glad I have it now. I actually have 1 ball of the Black Sheep Heather left over, which I have no idea what to do with. I'm not gonna incorporate it into anything yet because I'm sort of saving all of my different colored Lettlopi leftovers to incorporate into like a bigger colorwork sweater. I'm not sure what the pattern will be and what the colorwork motif will be and like the color scheme, nothing yet, but I'm glad that I have a lot of options in my stash to choose from. So I actually had to size down my needle size for the sleeves because I used 5.5mm needles for the original weekend slipover, and I only had a long like 80cm circular needle. Since I don't have a smaller size, it means that it's a size I basically never use. I didn't want to buy a new set of circular needles just for the sleeves, and I also didn't want to do magic loop because I'm not a magic loop person. It's just too cumbersome for me. I sometimes do sort of a fake magic loop if I really have to, where you just sort of adjust the extra cord that you don't need every like half a round or something. I did a gauge swatch in 5 and 6mm needle just to see which option I like best, and I like the 5mm one a lot more, so that's what I used for the sleeve. I'm happy to report that I did finish my commissions and I shipped them off to her. She already received both and gave me a nice feedback, which I really appreciate. I still have about 50 grams of that sock yarn left over, and I'm making this face because, as I said last time, it's not really my favorite color to work with, but I think I'll be able to incorporate it into something. I do have a nephew who's in 1st grade and does wear a lot of blue. Maybe I'll knit him something using this yarn. I don't know. I got that yarn basically for free, so I have literally no reason to complain about it. And the next project I wanted to show you is this crochet basket I made. I'm showing off the only crochet stitch I know how to do. And this is the yarn I showed you last time. It's a chunky vintage yarn I got, which I was really scared about being contaminated with moths, but it's not. Thankfully, I used some Lettlopi yarn to do the contrast edge. And I'm not really thrilled with this basket because it's quite floppy. It does hold the yarn inside, but it's really like it doesn't have any structure to it, especially when nothing is in it. So what I think I'm gonna do is try and like felt it down a little bit. I have some of this yarn left over, just a tiny bit, so I'm gonna try and felt a swatch and see how it behaves. If it doesn't felt down, I think I'm gonna sew a lining into it because I do like how it looks. It's just this really basic beige color, but the floppiness is not ideal. And that's pretty much it for my finished objects. I feel like I don't have anything too inspiring or interesting to show you, but first of all, I'm not an objective judge of this because, as I talked about last time, I do tend to have negative thoughts about my projects right after I finish them. And second of all, I was sick with COVID for pretty much all of November, which was as fun as it sounds. It was magnificent. I think I got sick right after I recorded my last podcast. It was so sort of sudden. I think I got it either at the hairdresser or at the sewing classes I go to because I don't really go anywhere else. I work from home, I knit from home, I'm just usually chilling at home. But yeah, chilling at home I was because I got sick at the beginning of November. I only started to feel better last week. I don't consider myself to be really like immunocompromised, but my immune system is not the best. And when I get COVID or flu for that matter, I really need to wait it out. Like even if I take all the medication and take all of the precautions, I have to let it like run its course, which usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks. When I look at the calendar now, it freaks me out. I can't believe that it's almost December. For me, it's mentally like November 2nd, maybe November 5th, because as far as I could remember, it was the last time I was sort of up and about. I feel like I lost a whole month, and yeah, the environment and like the circumstances weren't really the best for coming up with interesting and unique knitting projects to work on. Now I do have some works in progress that I'm really excited about, so let me show them to you. So there are 3 projects that I'm working on right now, and only one of them is a gift knit. I decided to really dial it down with gift knitting this year, and the reason is pretty simple. All of the people in my life who are really knit worthy and gift worthy already have so much knitted stuff from me, it's starting to become ridiculous. Everybody I love already has a sweater, an accessory, like a hat, something random. It feels like I'm dressing everybody. So I decided to put my gift knitting on pause for now and only knit something if a person really asks for it and wants something specific. I think it's going to be much more sort of productive for my knitting time and for their capacity to receive and wear knitted gifts. So yeah, that's the plan, but I do have one gift knit I'm working on, and that's the Moby sweater that I'm making for my boyfriend. I wanted to knit a cabled sweater for him since at least last year. I already bought yarn for it last year, which I ended up not using. It's Lana Gatto's Calico or Calico yarn, whatever. It's a 50% acrylic, 50% wool. It's a really nice and smooth like DK yarn, which I thought would be perfect for cables, and I thought that I bought enough, but I swatched it with different gauges, different patterns, different stitch patterns. The more I did, the more I realized that no matter how I tried to make it work for his size and different patterns, I'm just not gonna have enough. And this is sort of a dead stock / discontinued yarn, so I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to find more, and especially not in this color and dye lot, so I just gave up and decided to use a completely different yarn because I did choose a pattern at that point and I wanted to make him a Moby sweater. The yarn I substituted my original choice with is this Alize Wooltime yarn. It's also a DK weight yarn, and I haven't used Alize in a while. It's the yarn I started with, along with, I think, Yarn Art and Gazelle, because that's mostly what's available in our local yarn stores. A lot of shops here have Turkish yarn. They're not the best quality sometimes. For example, Alize, what is it called? Lana Gold. It's the worst yarn in the world. It's so bad. It's 50% acrylic, 50% wool, but the wool is like the rejects of the most, I don't know, bad quality mill. It's really bad. But this one is nice. It's technically a thick sock yarn. It had some nice reviews, plus it's quite affordable, and I can get it if I need to. Like if I need to get more, or if I run out of yarn, or if I have some left over and I decide to buy more yarn for a different project, it's right there. It's available like everywhere, and I can even choose the dye lot, not only the colorway. So it's perfection. And I'm not sure if it's gonna hold up, if the quality would be nice enough in the end, especially with wear, but I'm hoping so. It does knit up really nicely, plus I'm actually really happy about the fact that I'm not pairing this yarn with anything. I can just use it on its own. The gauge is perfect. I already started the back panel. I technically finished the back panel, and I need to pick up stitches for the front section. I'm kind of confused about this pattern. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice pattern. I always love Petite Knit, you know, I'm her biggest fan, but I can't figure out why this pattern doesn't have any increases in the underarm section. I saw, I think, a question about it in the Ravelry comments for the pattern page, but no answers. If you knit this pattern before, please let me know if I what the hell was that? If you knit this pattern before, please let me know what is the situation with the shaping. Am I missing something? There are no stitches to cast on when you join the front and the back section into the body to knit in the round. And also there are no increases on both sides before you join the front and the back section. So it sounds confusing. This sort of no stitches increased and no stitches cast on for the underarm is what I was doing when I was just starting out with knitting, and I tried to self-draft my own patterns, and every time I did that I ended up having this like sort of bulge in the underarm section, especially when I put my arms down. If you know, let me know. I really hope I can get some answers before I start doing the front section, because after I'm done with that, I will need to join it in the round, and there would be sort of no going back from there. Other than that, I do like this pattern a lot. I was able to hit gauge perfectly with this DK yarn, which I really appreciate. I'm not doing the mock cable as described in the pattern. Instead, I'm just doing regular cables. Even though it's a 2-stitch cable, it's fine. It's really quick. My plan is to finish it by Christmas, so I can gift it to my boyfriend, finally. Maybe so he can wear it on New Year's, but this is ambitious. This is the sort of good outcome I'm aiming towards. My next project is my Waffle Loop sweater, finally. I started it back in January, worked on it for a tiny little bit, and then I abandoned it. I'm not a person who is prone to UFOs. I think besides this one, which is not a UFO anymore, I had maybe 2 in the last couple of years. I have one now, and that's my Summer Memories socks. We just started last summer and we just don't talk about summer memories. I left notes. I know exactly which round I was knitting the last time I worked on it. It's like a psychological thing. I can't pick it up, but regardless, I did pick up my Waffle Loop sweater, and my first naive idea was that I can just start at the point where I left off. No, because I left 0 notes about what I was doing, what size I was making, which row I was knitting when I stopped working on it. There was nothing. The section I knit back in January was pretty small, so it wasn't a big loss to just unravel it. I think I got back to that point in like an hour and a half, so it was fine. And I'm really pleased with how it's coming out, and it's really fun to knit. There are a couple of issues that I want to mention, but first let's talk about how squishy and just really pleasant to work with this yarn is. So this is the yarn I'm knitting it with. It doesn't have a brand name because originally this yarn was on a cone. It was a really thin 1-ply wool thread almost. I think it was like 1.5 meters per 100 grams. It's either used for machine knitting or you ply it together. For example, I have 5 plies in here and I hold it double, so like 10 plies in total. And the thing about this yarn, it's 100% merino that has such great stitch definition, especially on ribbing, and you can ply it together indefinitely. So it can be bulky weight, it can be like, you know, sport weight, DK weight, whatever. You can always just add 1 more ply. It's not really practical to work with it because when you have a big cone of this really thin yarn, you do have to ply it for a long time and just figure out which weight you need. You have to have a ball winder for that, because sitting and doing this, it's just, you're gonna go insane. So this is the stitch definition of this yarn. Oh, and also it doesn't pill. I'm really pleased with the texture. I just barely started the cable motif at the back and at the front. I'm gonna join them together really soon. The only modification I made to this pattern is that I did a shorter high neck. I think it's supposed to be rolled over. It asks for like 11 or 13 centimeters depending on the size, but I did 8 because I find that this is the height that looks flattering on me, so to speak. I had to do less boring ribbing at the top. I still have to do a lot at the bottom when I'm done with the body. So yeah, the only problem with this yarn is that it clings to everything, or like everything clings to it. Any sort of pet hair or fluff or dust or my hair, anything. And it's not going to be a problem once I'm done with it because I have this, like, what do you call it, like a lint roller, but I can't work on anything fluffy while I'm working on this. And that is the reason I haven't cast on my plain yoke blouse, which I wanted to start last time we spoke. I realized that this yarn and this yarn combo, like, let me just show you. I'm not sure if the camera picks it up, but it's like a vacuum for any sort of fluff. So if I work on these at the same time, I'll end up with fluff knitted into this fabric right here, and it'll be a pain to pick it up. So I had to make a choice between them, and I chose this one because it's a lot more fun to work on, because the plain yoke blouse, as the name suggests, is plain. It's just stockinette. So really excited about this one, and I'll tell you more the more I knit on it. My last work in progress for today is my Berlin scarf, and originally I didn't intend to cast on this one. I wanted to make the comfort zone poncho because I really wanted to knit myself a poncho, but we'll get to that. Even though I'm a knitter, I don't have a long scarf with like tassels. I don't have a set of accessories, so to speak. I have almost a set that I wear usually in winter, but everything else in terms of accessories is sort of mismatched, and I really wanted to make a set. So I decided I'll start with the Berlin scarf. Plus I was really interested to see how she knits the tassels. I'm not even remotely done, but as you can see, it's super duper long already. I was also trying to figure out what sort of yarn to use with it, because I wanted to use Sadness yarn, but it would have been really expensive just for the scarf, and I didn't want to cut corners and make it shorter. Then I remembered about this yarn I used to work with in 2022, 2021. It's Yarna Tobias. It's really similar to all of those like Snefnook, Poppy sort of yarns, but not really, because it doesn't have a cord that alpaca is blown into. It has this like thin cord of viscose with like boucle bits, and the alpaca fluff is sort of just slapped on top of it. This yarn has one major drawback, is that it's impossible to unravel. Once you knit something with it, like, you're done. It is also really drapey, extremely drapey. Like, it will not hold ribbing. If you do like 2x2 rib with it, you will see both the purls and the knits, and it's not going to be stretchy. It's not going to be sort of stretching width wise. So you have to be really careful about the project you choose to use this yarn for. But I do like this yarn. I just worked with it multiple times. I made a sweater out of it. I also made sort of a colorworks sweater with it that I auctioned off at the beginning of 2022, if you know what I mean. I also knit a few hats from it and a dress, like a black dress that I ended up giving to my mom because it was a little bit too big for me. So I sort of missed it, to be honest. I use 7mm needles for my Berlin scarf. I didn't do a provisional cast on because I was just really lazy to get a crochet hook, so I just started it in contrasting yarn, and I'm just gonna pull it out when I'm ready to do the tassels. I think I have one more ball of yarn to go before I start to do the tassels on both sides. You can see from this stitch marker, this is how much one ball of yarn gave me. I bought a few more balls of this yarn because, as I said, I don't have a set of knitted accessories that are matching. So I want to make a hat and a pair of mittens with this yarn. I think for a hat, I will definitely pair it with something, maybe some kind of a inconspicuous sock yarn I can throw into the mix, just because, as I said, it's not good for ribbing. It's not good for stretchy things. I don't want my hat to be floppy. I'll have to figure something out, but yeah. Regarding the tassels, when I bought this pattern, I bought it mostly because I wanted to see the instructions for the tassels. I was convinced there were I-cord tassels, but they are double knit tassels, which is weird and honestly super time consuming. So I'm not sure I'm gonna do them in double knitting. Maybe I will actually do the I-cord. And I was a little bit mad at myself for buying this pattern because I bought it specifically for the I-cord instructions, and besides that, I could have just knit a tube of stockinette for a scarf without actually, you know, paying like $3 for a pattern. But I was happy to support the designer. This is a really nice design that sort of blew up last year, and I think I'm gonna love my finished Berlin scarf. I just need to get through the endless round of stockinette, and as far as I understand, like a million ends to weave in when you're done with the tassels. I'm also not working on this right now because my Waffle Loop is attracting all the fluff like a magnet, so I'm only working on this like in the other room, you know, in the completely different settings, so I don't like distribute any fluff. And that's all for my works in progress. I technically already showed you one of the acquisitions because I did buy this Tobias yarn specifically for my Berlin scarf. And I also bought this silk mohair. This is Yarna Soft Dream, which is my go-to silk mohair. I know there is a ton of different silk mohairs to choose from. This one is the cheapest. It's the cheapest. It has a huge selection of colors. It's still like 30% silk, 30% kid mohair. It's soft, it's nice. I worked with it a million times. I don't see the point of paying like, let me see how much knitting for all of silk mohairs. Silk mohair press. It's almost €8. This one is €3 per ball, so a definite winner. But the reason I bought it is because I wanted to unravel. I had to wait for the construction noises to stop, and they have no sign of stopping. It's been like 15 minutes and I just gave up because, as you can see from my LED light right there, it's gotten really dark. I just love this season when you get twilight at 2 p.m. It's perfect. So I'll have to be as quick as possible. As usual, I hate the fact that every time I record the podcast, I have to wrap it up really quickly. I wish I had a whole day to just sit and chat about knitting. Would be wonderful. But anyway, I had an idea, especially after my really sort of good experience with remaking my weekend slipover, to unravel this jumper that I made, I think, in 2020. I like it. It's like, it's well made. It's nothing special. It's just a raglan jumper, but I found that I don't wear it as much, and it's really sort of thin, and neckband is a little bit too wide and too sort of square. I decided I would unravel this whole thing and used the yarn to make the Amy slipover, which I really wanted to make for a long time, and I finally found a way to access the pattern, because as you may or may not know, Sadness Garn patterns are extremely hard to find without buying their yarn and buying their magazines. So I finally got a hold of a Sadness Garn magazine with the Amy slipover pattern and decided that instead of buying new yarn altogether for this project, I would unravel this, add the silk mohair, and make the Amy slipover. However, this is sort of the darkest brown they have of this silk mohair. Look how beautifully they go together. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought because this yarn and this sweater has a little bit of a, not halo, but like a lighter shimmer in the yarn, this would be fine, but it's not fine. It's not brown, it's beige. I decided to wear this sweater one last time to just to be sure, because once you unravel, you can't really go back. Well, like you can, but like, I'm not gonna reknit this sweater again just to get the same result, which I had for like 4 years. Anyway, I wore it and I loved it. I don't know why. I haven't worn it in like a year and a half, and it's not as bad as I remember. It fits nice. Yes, it's quite thin, but like you can wear it under a blazer or under a cardigan. So yeah, I'm not unraveling this one. I have no idea what to do with this yarn. I have 3 balls of this silk mohair, which would be enough for the Amy slipover, but I need to find a suitable yarn. For now, the only sort of contender I have is the yarn I'm actually using for the Moby Sweater. They are spot on together, but I feel like this yarn with the silk mohair would be too thick for the Amy slipover, so I'll have to figure it out. Maybe there's another yarn from Alize that has the same sort of colorway. Even though I was really successful with my weekend slipover, I decided not to touch this one. And also I said that I will get back to the little story about the poncho that I wanted to knit myself. So I just for funsies went to one of the thrift stores around me and browsed through the sweaters and like sweatshirts, which I usually don't do because there's like nothing for me there. I don't really wear sweatshirts a lot and I don't need any knitwear, obviously, but something kind of, you know, pushed me to check it out, and I touched wool. Like I was browsing and I touched something that was clearly wool, and my brain was immediately like, maybe you can unravel this, because I was in an unraveling mood at that point. Maybe it's like an out of style sweater that is made from nice wool. Especially if the garment is clearly hand knit, it's not that hard to unravel it if you figure out how it's knit, like if it's knit top down or bottom up, if the sleeves are sewn, or you know what I mean. I decided like, okay, I will unravel this sweater. And then I picked it up and I realized that it's a poncho, which, like, I love this. Since 2018, I haven't bought an acrylic sweater or just a machine knit sweater. I have one technically machine knit sweater, but it's a really thin cashmere jumper, which I wouldn't have been able to make myself, so I think it doesn't count. But everything else is knit by me, and this is not, which is so weird. This is not hand knitted as far as I can understand. It has a label. It says British wool naturally. I googled it and it's some kind of a wool company that sells wool garments, and it says 100% wool in this really fancy font. I haven't considered myself to be a poncho person, but this is so warm and convenient to wear because it goes really well with one of my most frequently used coats. I can also wear it around the house and knit in it. I noticed that when I wear my hand knit garments around the house and sit down to knit in them, I then have these really obvious creases that make me look sort of like a Michelin man, which is not really flattering. So I have to like iron out or like steam out the wool after I'm knitting for a long time. But with this, I don't have that problem. And let me finally try it on. Since I'm technically done with my podcast for today, I can afford to get up and move a little bit. I feel like it looks like I made it and I didn't, and it's a really weird situation to be in because I usually knit my knits. Yeah, so I think I managed to talk about everything I wanted to show you today, and we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna enjoy like half an hour of sunlight, not sunlight, I wish, daylight I have left. I also wanted to say that I'm planning to post more in December. I hesitate to call it Vlogmas because I'm not the kind of person who can handle daily uploads. My life is also pretty boring. I mostly knit and work, and that's all, and it can get pretty repetitive after a couple of episodes. But still, I wanted to do something special, and also I'll show you my in-depth progress on the projects I'm knitting right now. Maybe I'll cast on something else. We'll see. And if you have any ideas in mind, any like questions for me or anything you want to see me do, let me know. If you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Also, let me know in the comments, as usual, what you're working on. What are your knitting projects currently? What are your gift knitting projects? Anything, I'm all ears, and I will see you really soon in December. Happy holidays. Bye. I use 7mm. I use 7mm. In-depth progress on my works in progress, and which is redundant. I have a few sweaters with high neck that is about 8 meters. 8 meters?